are too low. So the marine life cannot survive. Okay, and this is an example of it is in the Gulf of Mexico, where all the nutrients from Mississippi River, right? Because just right on the edges of the river, you have farms that are supporting and grazing animals. So you have a lot of nutrients from these farms, right, in grazing fields that are coming into Mississippi River, and fertilizers and all that stuff. And that's going right into the ocean. And when it dumps all of that nutrients and chemicals, guess what happens? It has this zone the size of Connecticut, right, unfortunately, where you do not have marine life surviving, or very little of it. Okay, and that zone is actually growing as we're using more and more fertilizer and chemicals and pollutants. So this is something to think about. Now what happens is that actually it's the people who suffer, because then the fish industry is hurting. And then we don't have fish to eat, or lobsters, and then we start complaining. We look at it from our own perspective, but this is what some of the things that we know. Clearly, the world, the deserts, desertification, the deserts are growing in numbers. If you have growth of deserts, you have less land for farming. You have less land for forested area, less land for people to live and get their water. So it's a difficult scenario here. Degradation of soils related to it. Ozone destruction. Everybody suffers because of that. In Australia, they're talking about increase in number of skin cancer because of the poor ozone environment, ozone layer in the South Pole, decline in forest cover, threatened and endangered species being wiped out, acid rain, pollution. So all of this is related to environmental crisis that we all are aware of. And if we're not, we need a reality check. Okay, because some people, they think it doesn't, just people, scientists, they just try to scare us. But this is reality. Most of the species that were there at the turn of the century or last century, they're no longer with us. And we really depend on their survival for our survival. If they don't exist, we do not exist. And that's just, it's just a matter of time. So moving on to the next slide. What is environmental ethics? To describe environmental ethics is a systematic account of the moral relations between human beings and their natural environment. So where you live, the people or the different species that you come and interact with, this is whom we're dealing with. So that's what the environmental ethics is going to talk about. And that, in a nutshell, it's land, air, sea, biotic and abiotic, right? Living and non-living creatures. And then a number of philosophies to deal with our environmental crisis have been, because what happens is that you have, obviously science gives you the result. This is what's happening, what we just talked about, the crisis. And this is not hidden from anyone else. So after knowing that this is occurring, we're going to turn to, and there were a lot of environmental related laws, the Water Act and other acts, right, where these sources have to be protected. Water, whether it's river, streams, wetlands, all these were related. In the 70s, most of the law, environmental law that went into effect, it protected these areas. But then folks start thinking about what are we going to protect and what are we not going to protect? Where is law? Where do we draw the line? And that's the confusing part, because should we protect the barred owl, or should we protect the entire forest? Or should we not protect the owl because it's going to threaten the timber industry, for the argument's sake? So people have to come to make some informed decisions. And science is going to teach us what it is and how it works. And ethics is going to go back to, if we're going to protect it, then why are we going to protect it? If it's good, it's bad, what's the reason behind it? Okay? So that's environmental ethics in a nutshell. Next one, please. Okay. Some of more factors that one should also think about in environmental ethics. Environmental ethics is not, oh, yes, we do feel great about protecting the environment. Let's protect the environment and be done with it. It relates with other fields. So it's going to deal with economics. People are going to, perhaps the timber industry, they're not going to like to, why should we protect a bird when my job is, when I have to put food on the table for my children and I'm going to lose the job? Why not go into the rainforest and cut down these trees, right, and make some money out of it? So environmental ethics, we're going to have to deal with social issues, political issues, economical issues, health factors, and all these other things that will contribute to the decision that we make. Okay? Sometimes it's not smart to protect some individual species, and sometimes it is. Perhaps how do we differentiate between something that is threatened and something that is not threatened? Do we protect all of them? Do we protect some of them? So how do you draw the line? And then I just want to give you this as to one of the quotes from Jordan. And he talks about just to differentiate, because people tend to think, why not use science for everything? Because science is a great tool. Science could get us through all of this mess. If we could just build this nuclear something that will just give us the pure energy and no pollutants, then we could just go on, okay? And we wouldn't have to face the environmental crises. But he gives a very good analysis, and he says, although turning to science and technology in the hope of a quick fix is tempting, environmental challenges are neither exclusively nor even primarily problems of science and technology. These are not problems that were created by science or technology, and we're not going to be able to solve them with science or technology, okay? Environmental issues raise fundamental questions about what we as human beings value, the kind of beings we are, the kind of lives we should live, our place in nature, and the kind of world in which we might flourish. Okay? If somebody wants to pollute the environment, science can't do anything about it. People have to change, and the way they live, and the way they act, and the way they want to live. And this is what environmental ethics is all about, that we have to change, the people, not science. Science could do the best it wants to. But at the end of it, it's the people who are going to make the decision. It's the people who are going to have to protect the environment. And it's the people who are going to have to live within that environment that they create. Next one. OK. So now we're coming to some of the philosophical ideas about, and these are all Western, again, ethics that are well known. This is not something new. Utilitarian tradition, and that is you judge by the consequences, maximize the overall good, or to produce the greatest good for greatest individuals. And that relates to environmental ethics in a sense where when we're looking into protecting something or some sort of economical gain or some sort of environmental policies, that is the one of the traditions or one of the theories that we should look into how we could maximize the good for all the species, how to protect the environment. Another way of looking into the ethics is ethical relativism. Okay, and that's just you being skeptical, basically. Relativists are basically folks who do not trust the judgment of others, you could say. They think that it's not easy, or objective sound ethical judgments are impossible. That I have an opinion and I see truth in one way, and that's my perspective. And you see truth in another way, and that's your perspective. So we're people of perspectives. We're not people who are holding on to some kind of truth or some kind of reality. Okay? In the Greek culture, you could look at those people as sophists. Right? You had the philosophers, and then you had the sophists. Sophists, they came up with the sophisticated argument, but nevertheless, they were not interested in finding the truth. So, those people who are going through this, they're actually looking at it and saying, well, that's just your opinion, okay? And I have my opinion, okay? And we may not agree with it. So you would find that too, but I think that's being more skeptical, and Desjardins talks about it as that it's more of intellectual laziness on their part, that some folks would just simply say, we can't draw the line as what is good and what is bad. Okay, he does not agree with this.